If you go back 18 months, whatever the period is, it doesn't have to be that long. It might be a year.
Yeah.
And you go to the CEO of Adobe and you say, okay, you got to hear me out because there's this threat.
Nano Banana is going to crush you.
0% chance you take that seriously. Like, come on.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Dougals, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
You got Skippy and Dougals here. Welcome back to another fantastic episode. SkippyDougals@gmail.com. That's where you can send in all your listener mail. Please do. And check out all of our things at SkippyDougals.com. Any questions you had about us, you will have answered. We have 2 items for you today. And then I have a special announcement for something coming up that we mentioned a couple weeks back. The 2 items for today. We're going to discuss what's happening with software stocks. They are getting hammered. You see it in the news. You see it in your stock charts. You might see it in your 401 Kizzle. Stock charts, I'm telling you. They are down and to the right. The second item we're going to touch on is this viral piece that's been going around. Something big is happening. We're going to discuss what that is, what it means, our general reactions. Before we get to those, investment committee. This is something we mentioned a couple weeks ago. You send in your ideas. We look at it from our 2 different perspectives, tell you what we think. These are not investment recommendations. They're also not exactly research recommendations. This is just us legit doing research beforehand and taking down or pushing up what you bring to us. Pinterest is going to be the first one. P-I-N-S. Pinterest. If you want to hear those thoughts, tune in next week.
You just said 401 Kizzle. I've mentioned before, sometimes I get accosted on the street from Skippy and Dougals fame, but I just want you to yell. If you see me out and about in the real live world, just yell 401 Kizzle at me, all right? I'll know you're a fan of the show. What are you doing over there, Dougals? I mean, you're making up words.
No, I call into my Fidizzle account, and I'm like, hello, is this the customer service rep of Fidizzle? Because I'm calling about my 401 Kizzle.
Do you ever have the people at Fidizzle call you? They are some real clowns over there. But anyway, before I throw some shade, we should get on.
Okay, software stocks crushed every other day, if not every day. You see some other stock that's down by 5, 10, 15, 20%, getting crushed.
Here's a stat to start us off. And this is a weird stat. I'm not even sure if I can say it right. Okay? So over the last 8 sessions, this goes back to last week, but 115 stocks in the S&P 500 have declined 7% or more in a single day. Typically, when that happens, the S&P 500 is down 34%.
Does it say how many times this has happened?
I'm looking at a chart from 2000 on, and it appears to have happened 5 times in the past 25 years.
So,
okay?
Yeah.
The S&P is currently 2% off all-time highs. This last 2 weeks is the weirdest. I don't know what's happening because you have these software stocks getting cut in half, basically, going down 7% a day, sometimes 7% one day, 10% the next day, having earnings releases that are generally positive where they exceed expectations, but say in 2026 we might make 7 cents less than planned, and the stock's down 10%. This is absolute madness. It's been so fun to follow along. And typically, I'm not a person that, again, because of the show, I follow more of the day-to-day than I used to. But, like, I'm typically not a person that cares what happens on a single day. And this has been absolute craziness.
It's because of the amount of money that goes away. Like, when you say 20% for some of these stocks, it's billions of dollars. It's not tens of billions of dollars sometimes. That is evaporating overnight. And this is not a stock, but Bitcoin itself is kind of fascinating right now. I think it was you that sent to me the correlation between there's a software ETF of some sort and Bitcoin, and they basically are just the same.
It's the exact same graph for 5 years, which you can play with the numbers and stuff, the way you align the axes.
It's always fun.
It was like, this might not be digital gold. This might be leveraged software stocks. Yeah.
Same, as they say.
Okay, so that's why we're starting the show talking about software, because it's incredibly interesting. So I don't know how long ago it was. In the past year, we had Elaine Lee, the inventor or the the person that coined the phrase a unicorn, right?
Yep.
Who is a legend in the VC community, Cowboy Ventures. And you know her much better than I do, Douglas. But effectively, I think the first few decades, that firm was entirely focused on software. And she did such a great job articulating why software is this great place to invest. And I think that opinion was held within the Valley by probably the majority of people, because it's this asset-light business model, easy to scale. I mean, Bill Gates talked about long ago in the 80s and 90s how they were blown away when they wrote the code for like the Microsoft operating system. Their only cost was the CD-ROM. Well, you know what happened in the recent years? You didn't even have the CD-ROM cost anymore. People hit a button on their computer, they downloaded your software, and then they paid you money. In a lot of cases, because they switched to monthly subscription models, they pay you money every month, like into perpetuity for what seemed like the rest of time.
I was cleaning out my office because I was making the move, right, where my office was, and came across this booklet of old like software CDs and other gaming CDs. It was just a book full of different compact discs. And a part of me said, why do I need these? Like, I don't even know. I literally don't know where to place these, how to play them. And then part of me went, this is a part of history. Like, I don't know. So I still have this book. I still have this book of CDs and I don't know what to do with it. But it feels kind of wild to me that this existed. It's something that my son, that our kids will, unless it comes back for some reason, will never experience.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Please throw that book away for me.
One of them has 100 minutes of AOL.
So valuable, since AOL doesn't exist on dial-up anymore, Diggles. So valuable. All right,
if you want to let me know,
I'll cut my preamble and we can get into it. But this is what's so fascinating. There are long-held beliefs that said software may be the greatest business model on earth that seem to all have fallen apart within the past 3 months because of the AI threat.
Where do you want to start? You want an instant reaction, or what do you want?
Yeah, give instant reaction, and then let's hear from Jeff Horning.
I love when people talk about how everything is about to come to an end and it's all going to fall apart, because the only thing I know is that it's not true. And it causes me to dive into what the particular arguments are. But my more succinct and to the point reaction to this is, what isn't software? So when you say software, when the market is saying software is falling apart, I kind of go, software is a part of everything. And so therefore, you really have to be much more specific, and they're not. I think that's why so many of these stocks are getting crushed. And it doesn't mean that analysts aren't company by company giving some perspective. But the broad belief that software is falling apart makes me look for names. Because whenever something systematic falls apart, there's always some diamonds in that they're rough, my friend.
Well, and AI is software.
Yeah, AI is also that is.
And we'll talk about this later in the show. But when I've been blown away with AI recently, it's when it's used software that adds value to my life in a way that I use it that has saved me significant amounts of time. That's didn't like take my Microsoft Excel, throw it in the trash can, build a brand new Microsoft Excel, then build on top of that brand new, it's leveraging the tools I use, and I think we'll talk about that a bunch later.
We will.
No, go ahead.
You ever watch the Dave Chappelle show?
Yeah.
Chappelle show. Chappelle. You know what I'm talking about. Chappelle show. He had this skit where he was, because Dave Chappelle is black, he was a black, blind, KKK white supremacist.
Oh, yes.
You remember that skit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to skip all the details of the skit. People can get the idea that when notified that he was a black man, there was some self-hatred going on. AI showing up and talking about how software is dead feels like a very similar thing. When AI's significant other points out that AI is software.
I didn't think you'd go there, but that's kind of funny. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. All right, should we go to Jeff?
Yes, let's hear from Jeff.
I think the bear case on software, I could just use Claude to write my next SAP. We're not losing any sleep over that. Quite the opposite.
Why? Why not?
Because that's not what software ever was. There was never a technology barrier. It was always a business knowledge barrier. And yeah, maybe you could literally have AI look at SAP and plagiarize it and try and build something equivalent. But I'm just not worried about that market First of all, we haven't seen any of it in our companies. Like the cost of developing software is inching down, but it's not collapsing overnight. I can't explain exactly why. But the idea that a complex application is going to get built just because we have a better productivity tool. We've gone through generations of productivity tools in software development. This is more profound for sure. But, for those who are old enough on this call, like the 4GL was a pretty profound tool too. Because back in the day, you just had a database with a screen, right? Applications weren't all that complicated. And the 4GL was meant to basically make it really easy to build the screens. And it was impactful, but it didn't radicalize every SAP, and all these other companies didn't get displaced because of it. I don't worry about the usefulness of software so much as the budget being moved away from software to AI. And then on the flip side, which is what we're really focused on, is it's a massive TAM accelerator. So, okay, my core software is not as sexy, but now I could go after a whole set of problems that my customers have that I before could never automate. So, I'm on the board of CRM-like vertical applications where we're just capturing data, but 95% of the person's day is generating and getting the data. Well, if I could automate a big portion of the 95% of the time that you're getting data into the system, that's hugely valuable. We've got already maybe half a dozen or more companies really re-accelerating off of new products that they've launched in very short timeframes that are creating massive TAM expansion for their businesses. And I have no doubt the bigger public companies are working aggressively at the same thing, like Microsoft, right? Like it's an opportunity. Microsoft looks at that. Can I build a new PowerPoint with it? Probably. I don't know, maybe. But can I make PowerPoint, the existing product, way better with a Copilot? Yeah, probably can. And I think that's way more interesting.
Okay, so that's Jeff Horing, founding partner at Insight Partners, on with Patrick O'Shaughnessy for Invest Like the Best. This is like 3 to 6 months old, Douglas. This is a while back.
Yep.
There's a lot of ways to go here. Didn't you used to own HubSpot? Do you still own HubSpot?
Yeah, I don't anymore, but I have.
Okay.
A couple different occasions.
One of my companies is in the process of considering if they will replace HubSpot next year. The reason they're considering replacing HubSpot is not because they're going to build their own HubSpot. It's because HubSpot kind of sucks for their business, right? If HubSpot checked all the boxes, like if the product market fit was perfect, if the reporting was perfect, that would not be a consideration for us. I could go a lot of ways with this, but I find what he says so compelling, is specifically with like a Salesforce, which has been crushed recently.
Yep.
What do the sales guys always hate about Salesforce? They hate typing in all the data. If Salesforce finds a way, exactly to his point, to automate that, then the data in Salesforce is more accurate, more real-time, more valuable. The reporting that you pull out of Salesforce is easier to pull and potentially automated. And the value of Salesforce just went up 5 times.
Yep.
Didn't decrease. We didn't build a new Salesforce. But that being said, and we can talk specific names, some of these names, ServiceNow's, Adobe's, Salesforce's, there's 1,000 others, have just been crushed recently. Now, what's happening there? Well, we're going to talk about valuations in a second. So jump in before we talk about exactly what's happening with some of those names.
Oh, well, what I wanted to do was talk about what's happening with some of those names. But if you want me to back up a little bit, the thing I'd add on to what you're saying there is that without going to valuations, hold on.
No, let's go to valuations. That's fine.
Okay. Is that, and this goes back to your point earlier when you were mentioning how if they're off by 7 cents, then it gets crushed. You're going to make like almost nothing less. But the valuations for software companies were so near perfect for some of them, not all, but for some of them, that any uncertainty, it's not even saying that something bad is going to be there, but any uncertainty that there's can punish a stock in that case. And I think it's kind of the theme, the high level theme, I think that's occurring with some of these software stocks. But if we go to what you mentioned around like rebuilding a HubSpot, I think what Jeff says in here is so true around the business knowledge and the business application versus just the technology. For startups, like when you're just getting going, the technology is quite interesting. Because you're like, okay, you're attacking it from a different angle. But for a sustaining business, there are thousands or sometimes tens of thousands, or in a case like a Microsoft, could be 100,000 people that are working to improve a piece of software every day. And that takes customer relationships, customers telling you something that might be secretive about their business that's going to be in the future that you can then start developing features for. Like, there's so much that goes into the value of the business that's not the technology. I think that was a really important point that he layered on there. So creating the thing, could I create PowerPoint tomorrow? Yeah, sure. That version of PowerPoint is going to be so much worse in 3 months.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then the question becomes, if you believe that hypothesis, and it's we're not here to convince you. You believe whatever hypothesis you want. You can believe that Claude kills everything, and that's perfectly fine with me. Yeah. But if you believe that hypothesis, what's actually happening with a lot of these names that have dropped 30 to 60%, and some names, I should pull up the list, but some software names are down 80, 85% even in the recent period, is this weird thing about about valuations getting out over their skis. So I have a Salesforce chart up. Let me give you price to earnings ratios in the last 4 years. In 2023, price to earnings was 100. 2024, price to earnings was 55. 2025.
What is this for?
Salesforce.
This is for Salesforce. Okay, sorry, I missed
Salesforce.
That.
Ticker CRM. 2025, price to earnings was at 35. 2026, currently it's at 24. 24 is probably still very expensive, right? So you can believe that Salesforce is an above average business and maybe has a strong moat. But when people in 2024 paid 55 times earnings for the thing, they went a little insane. The everything bubble went crazy. So when I look at Salesforce, the really interesting thing now is if the economy truly blows up, a company like Salesforce at some point in the next 3 years might trade for a PE of 8.
Yeah.
6, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Historically in software, this is why I gave the preamble about people thinking that software is the greatest business ever. Historically in software, these businesses haven't traded anywhere near a PE of 15 or 12. And that's where Adobe is right now, and we might spend some time talking about Adobe. But what's happening here, I think why you can have so many names drop so rapidly, the number one factor is what you mentioned earlier, that they were priced for perfection. And we're clearly in a world where perfection doesn't exist for these names.
Or at the minimum, it's uncertain.
Oh, it's like uncertain times 3. I mean, the amount of uncertainty here. Because the other case that happens with software is like, okay, we're not building a new Salesforce tomorrow. Everyone agrees to that. What happened in the past, if you wanted to switch between Salesforce and a competitor, I don't know, call it SAP, call it whatever you want, is that project could take like 3 years, just extracting your data and putting it into the new tool. I think everyone agrees that AI can probably streamline your fact-checking there and the copy and pasting that has to happen and the combining databases and all those things. So you might be able to switch to a new provider much more seamlessly, much more quickly, which takes the pricing power into the hands of the Fortune 500 company rather than the software provider. So there's bound to be pricing pressure here, even if these companies continue with a fairly strong moat going into the future.
Yeah, that's right. You've got it's much more complicated than we're going to be able to break down because it's a system. But you can look at what you mentioned around pricing power. If you throw in the bull case is that the TAM goes up, the total addressable market, so TAM could also go up. Then on the bear case side, you also have the fact that there's going to be investment in AI, which is a higher price point. AI is like the compute that goes behind AI is expensive. So pricing pressure, compute costs, bull case of TAM going up. But like, how do you weigh, when I was talking about uncertainty, I think part of what I mean there is how do you weigh the difference between those? They're all assumptions on what's going to be happening on either side. And the bet that those assumptions are going to lead to higher valuation is hard to make for folks right now. That's what it is.
Well, there's no chance it leads to a valuation more than 100 PE. Like, that's just not happening.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Did you watch the Jensen's take on software too? It was more recent. This was like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he compared software to a tool, like a hammer.
Yeah.
And then he said that AI, if you have the world's smartest robot and it needs to put two boards together, I'm paraphrasing here, and there's a nail and a hammer, he's going to take the tools that are right in front of him rather than be like, I'm the world's smartest robot. I will build a new hammer from scratch that's slightly more aerodynamic. Like, you use the tools in front of you.
What I love about watching Jensen talk is he's incredible at this skill set of being the absolute smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And bringing you into his unique viewpoint. So he does these things where he says something very basic, almost without saying anything at all. And then he pauses and I'll go, like, do you understand me? It's like as if he's in some way not quite condescendingly talking to like a 10-year-old. You know, like he's explaining to you how to do the most basic thing. He takes these complex systems and then says something so basic. And then it's like, you get me, right? Like it's quite incredible to watch him talk. And I'm like, sure, whatever you say, that sounds like a good idea.
It's kind of hypnotizing. Other than the stock options, I'm happy I don't work at NVIDIA because I feel like he would be condescending to me all the time.
It would be very hard to go against him. I'm not saying he does, but he could gaslight anybody he wanted to. But, like, again, not saying that he does. It's just like he has that ability to hypnotize, to use your language.
Okay, so I kind of want to talk one real life example here. Are you cool with that?
Yeah. So
we talked about it a couple weeks back. This is a stock called Adobe.
Heard of it?
Right?
They make PDFs, right?
I'm going to use what I think is a neutral third party, but I'm not going to tell you my thoughts so much as Regia a few stats. So Morningstar's fair value for this stock is $560. They might be off by a factor two. I don't know.
Yep.
Middle last week, this stock was trading at $250 per share. Okay? That represents a PE of about 12 and a price to cash flow of also about 12. Hey, Skippy, how are the earnings basically equal to the cash flow? I don't know, because the profit margins are insane, and it's been growing at 10% a year. So investing is not about certainty. Not at all. I completely understand why Adobe would be the most hated name in the AI world, because you can go to Nano Banana and make these really cool graphics, like incredible stuff. Hold
on. Can I pause you for a moment? If you go back 18 months, whatever the period is, it doesn't have to be that long. It might be a year.
Yeah.
And you go to the CEO of Adobe and you say, okay, you got to hear me out. There's this threat.
Nano Banana is going to crush you.
0% chance you take that seriously. Like, come on. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Adobe's key competitor, who they tried to buy 2 years ago, is called Figma. Mm-hmm. That stock IPO'd.
Yep.
On the day of IPO, if I remember correctly, it went up like 80%. Everyone said Figma was the new world. Since the time of IPO, the stock is down like 85%. So if you ever liked Figma, that's great. It speaks to the point as why everyone's so concerned about Adobe. 100%. Adobe, I'm just looking at a 5-year chart. In the past 5 years, has peaked as high as $700 a share. Like, again, everyone knows those valuations were insane because that's the zero interest rate era. And so the human brain has a hard time when they see a stock that used to be at $700 a share when that was never fair value. They have a time. We give research recommendations on the show. I don't know. This stock might be the world's most terrible thing going forward. I don't know what the future holds. I have no idea. But if you are flipping a coin where one side says, I think I've read Morgan Housel's book, Same as Ever, and I think dominant industry providers in the field for 30 plus years probably continue to be dominant providers. It's kind of interesting. Does that mean the stock won't be at $130 a share in 6 months? It might be.
You never know.
You never know. I'm just using that because it's easier to talk about a specific example for me. It's an interesting name. There's no doubt about it. It's fascinating. It's below the like April 2022 lows when everything else crashed. It's at, gosh, I think it's at 7-year lows, thereabouts. There are a lot of interesting names. I'll get off my soapbox on that one, but wow.
Yeah. Because the level of general uncertainty around things is causing this volatility that is kind of wild. And to your point, because of the uncertainty, it's also hard to know where to even really put 6 months into the future or 2 months into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So much is in flux right now, which is part of what makes this game interesting and fun and challenging. But 7 years for Adobe is a little bit wild. I didn't realize that that's where it was.
And that's why we both love it. My larger point here is like, I have no clue. Douglas has no clue what 12 months from now looks like, but that is what investing is. At some point, you have to be like, the future is uncertain, and I want to make my bet on this, right? You get to choose what your bet is. Your bet could be that you want to pay, I don't know, 1,000 times earnings for Anthropic, or something else. But the value investors that have never been able to buy software are having fun over here because software is actually starting to look somewhat reasonable. And again, it still might be cut in half more. But if Adobe's at an 8 PE at some point, that's going to be pretty exciting to me.
Especially if it's mostly a systemic decline. That's when it becomes even more interesting for me, meaning the whole software industry is down and a company like Adobe is there versus just Adobe, which is what we are in the process of. We'll have to see how this flows. But when everything gets hit, to what I was saying earlier, when everything gets hit, that's when you can find the names, because the whole system is not bad. Usually, it's not the entire system. So,
well, the other place where that's happening right now is in payments.
Yeah, that's right.
So PayPal might be the world's worst company.
It's being valued as such.
Every other payments company and financial reporting company is also being crushed right now. So you get to pick whether it's Block or Fiserv, or there's 1,000 others. Like, the whole space has just been destroyed. It's very similar to software in the sense of that PEs just hung out in the 30s for absolutely no reason for what seems like the last decade. And that was probably never fair value. So the question is where they'll settle. But that's fun. And I don't remember, well, clearly, in the past 25 years with the stat we started with, this hasn't really happened where the entire market hasn't been down. So what I would love to happen is the entire market to go down 20%. And have these names that have already gone down 50% get caught up in that larger carnage, and then get to make some picks. That'd be really exciting.
I mean, that's when generational bets get made. I mean, things like that. It's like, the old joke. I'm not sure this is actually a joke, but the old joke, what do you call a stock that's down by 90%?
Stock that was down by 80% that got cut in half?
Exactly.
Yep.
And that math is not intuitive for most people. Because the human brain, because it thinks linearly, thinks the stock that's down 90% is a stock that was down 80%, then went down another 10%. Like that. That's the way, like, the intuitive brain would process that. But no, like, that's not the way that it works. And so the difference between 80 and 90 is half.
And that's why it's so hard to catch a falling knife, as they say. Because if you were to get comfortable with a stock like Adobe right now, there's a decent chance, I'd call it 30%, that it goes down another 50%. And the only way you can truly invest through that is if you're willing to deploy capital if the stock goes down another 50%. If you're not willing to do that, go do something else. I don't know why you're listening to us.
Speaking of which, the other version of that joke is, do you know what you call a stock that's down 90%?
What?
PayPal. That's another version of that joke. It's not told as often.
Tal Education Group. I mean, there's
exactly. It's Tal Education Group. All right. Transition. Fishbowl reach.
Yeah, I think we beat that to death. Sorry about that.
Okay, so there's this piece that's been going around over the last week, quite viral, called "Something Big is Happening." Matt Schumer put this out. It's around AI. What he gives in this piece is he's saying, I work in AI, been in the space, I see it day to day. I play with all the models, everything that comes out I use. And this is so much bigger and moving so much faster than the everyday person is giving it credit for. Buckle up your safety belts and get ready. That's the high level. Would you add anything else to the high level? It's long, so obviously
I want to mention the critiques that have come out since. One, it seems like AI crafted a lot of this article.
Hold on. Before you get to the critiques, let's give a little bit more about the piece. We don't have to do a lot.
Okay, go.
But just a few other things. So when he's saying it's going to move so much faster, you better buckle up, what he's saying is it's disrupting all the jobs. He mentions this anecdote around a partner in a law firm, that the partner in the law firm is using AI on a daily basis to replace the work that a lot of associates used to do. And so he gives that anecdote because he's saying this is a real industry where a real partner in the law firm is doing real work, using work that other people do. And then he starts to then say, now take that analogy and put it into writing, put it into finance, put it into accounting. Like, you can just start to see all this happening. And what I do think, before we go to the critiques, what I do think that he also does is he says, so there's all that, but in any great crisis comes an opportunity. So start using it. Start using AI in your day-to-day, because then you can make yourself much better, more productive, stronger, whatever. All right. I just wanted to give so people can understand if they haven't read it. We'll put this piece in the Substack, but if you haven't read it, that's what it's all about. Okay.
It's an engaging piece. I think it's engaging by design, and there might be some hyperbole in here.
Yep.
Where this piece doesn't go, but where the future goes, is what Elon Musk said in his interview with John Collison this week.
Oh, I didn't see that.
A Cheeky Pite podcast, which is
you're all
an
about that podcast. You love that podcast. Okay. And
Elon would take things to extremes, but of course, Elon's point that is like this on steroids is like, no, I'm going to have general intelligence that's smart. And that general intelligence that's smarter than a human is going to make general intelligence that's 100 times smarter than a human. And that general intelligence that's 100 times smarter than is going to make general intelligence that's 1,000 times. And then I'm going to put that in my robots, and then my robots are going to make manufacturing processes that are 1,000 times better than the current manufacturing processes. And then those robots will build other robots. Like, you follow where this goes, right? Yep. So the most extreme example of this is like, as soon as AI gets smarter than humans, and then if I have enough power and chips, that AI can make smarter AI. And then the joke basically becomes like, and then I just have to ask that AI to make a company that makes infinity profits, and then I have infinity profits. It gets dystopian, and it gets pretty bizarre pretty quick. The funniest thing for me, that's the wrong terminology. What's amazing about this is value flows to what's scarce. Like, when we talk about basic fundamentals of economics or physics or whatever, there are some basic fundamentals. The basic fundamental of where people put their money is two things that are scarce. And what AI is doing is changing the scarcity equation, right?
Exactly.
I mentioned this over text, but if someone walked in 10 years ago with a 30-page, really impressive Excel model, financial model, and a 100-page PowerPoint, and a team of 5 junior analysts standing behind them, and they walked through this financial strategy, I tended to be impressed if what they were saying made sense, because that was kind of the currency for how much time and effort and thought they had put into that challenge. Now I can create all that stuff in like 2 hours, just me and my friend Claude, right?
Yep.
But if I walk into the meeting and don't know every corner of that financial model like the back of my hand, it's completely worthless. Like, it's just a bunch of jargon. So what I really see happening is a shifting to what is scarce. And I think what is scarce will ultimately be human interaction with smart people who are actually experts in the field. Am I completely crazy there?
Well, the scarcity point, I think, is absolutely right, because that is how markets work. It's how the labor market has always worked. Mm-hmm. It's just shifting faster, but it's not different in concept than what's happened before. And I think you're right. I think it's incomplete. I don't know what the completeness is, but I do still think that there's also going to be some interaction between insight and human interaction, that like the melding of the two are still going to matter. I don't think that AI, at least in the near term, and I'm not as steeped in it as maybe someone like this Matt Schumer guy, but it's hard for me to imagine that in the nearest term that AI is going to be able to understand people well enough, specific nuanced groups of people well enough to provide the insight that's going to make a difference in that moment. What I mean by that is, like, when you're in a meeting, you've studied the people that are in that meeting beforehand. You may already know them. You may know how they, depending on how well you know them, you may know how they reacted when something happened with their kid 4 years ago, and therefore how that impacts how they think about something. And you take this insight and you know how to change the word in the insight, or you know when to deliver it, you know when to wait, when to pause, when to not. There's so much that goes into that I think people are going to have to get better at. People aren't good enough at that quite yet, but I think that is going to be some of the secret sauce that maybe AI can get better at if you're wearing your glasses and it can interpret things and it can pull in all of human history. I don't know. But I do think that there's still a lot of that. And even, this is a little bit off the specific subject we were touching on, but I was talking to someone, this is a few months ago now, about teaching and how do you stop kids from using AI for teaching? And my reaction, because I'm not a teacher, and so I was like, it's easy for me to not be in the arena and say what I'm about to say, but I was like, I think you lean into it. I think instead, like, you do things like you have to get better as a teacher, first of all, because you can't grade on the same things you graded before. And so as an example, you might just like assume that someone, or push people to use AI to create something. And then it's about the argument and the second level thinking that becomes so much more important. Can you explain what this is? Even if AI created this, can you come to me and explain it? Can you answer questions that I ask you about it? If I push, like that, I think that's where things just have to go. And that feels better to me. So then what becomes scarce is just data and is first level insight on that data. Oh, sorry. What? Not scarce.
Second
what becomes? Sorry. Well, I meant the opposite. What's the opposite of scarce?
Commoditized.
Like, plentiful. What becomes commoditized is data and the first level insights in that data. That becomes commoditized. What doesn't is what you're saying. Human interaction, human judgment, I think does not. But you have to be able to take that human judgment to the next level. All right, I've talked too long. That's my reaction to your scarcity point. Mostly, I think it's right.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I had this personal, like, Claude built this incredible inventory analysis for me that would have taken me 3 weeks. And I looked at it. I spent an hour verifying that it was right. I was absolutely blown away. And I had this empty feeling of like, okay, so my gut feeling was right. I have all the data and fancy dashboards to prove it. But now I like kind of need to talk to the senior leadership team about this and like actually do it. It felt empty because it was so easy, right? Because it's Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting, like ripping up the math problem in front of the Harvard professor or whatever. He's like, this is a joke. Like this is so boring. And I just think that's happening so rapidly with, again, I don't know, 5% of the population. I think the large majority of the population might not even know what these tools are, let alone be using them.
Yep.
People might still think Copilot is like cutting edge. I mean, it's so.
Yeah. The other thing that neither one of us is probably qualified to really talk about, but I'll bring up anyway, is can you create AI? Let's imagine that it gets as smart as people or smarter than people. Can you create that AI without the downside of what we all encounter when you come across humans that are that smart? Like, can that AI not have hubris? Can that AI not end up then getting in its own way when it tries to be so great? Like, can it not insult people? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something that happens when you become that bright, and humans are creating these things. So like, I do believe AI can be manipulative, right? As humans do, but then humans have a reaction to that. So like, can you create an AI that is possible to be as smart as the smartest human, but not have all the turnoffs that smartest human like generally does, right?
Now, can I unveil the secret about this podcast now?
Please.
This last hour of conversation is entirely generated by AI, and we're not real humans. Okay, that's not actually true. Douglas is talking to AI about none of this is true. Fun stuff. I think it's This is a fascinating time. One of the more fascinating weeks that we've been doing. Well, we've been doing the podcast for 5 years. This is one of the more fascinating weeks.
So I just finished, yes. And last thing before we wrap, I just finished the book Hidden Figures. I'd never touched it before. I'd seen the movie.
Sure.
And one thing that hit me, so this goes back, if you don't know about Hidden Figures, it's a group of Black women that were in NASA early days, to keep it simple. So this was late 1950s, early 1960s. The people had jobs, these women had jobs that were called computer. The job title was computer. And that's what they did. But then computer started coming out. Like, this is when, for them, like, you had to be at NASA, but like computer started coming out. And one of the things that a character talks about in there is, as she's leading her group of Black women, is she was like, y'all better become experts on these computers. Like, it's quite obvious what they have and what they do not have. But if we can't use them, we will never be able to accomplish everything that we can, right, and move forward as our people. And I was just, when I was going through that part, I was thinking about our conversations and other conversations that have been had about the dot-com boom. And I was like, but the way that, at least in this one anecdote, that was talked about, it feels more like that time. Like when the computer itself was first coming out feels, and maybe it's both and they're just different analogies, but her saying that, I was like, that is exactly it. That is the point around start using AI. Most of it will end up dying and going away, just like with any technology. But some companies prevail, some models will prevail. Start using it, understand it. When I see that schools are like banning it, it just makes me sick. Because like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you're not going to allow people to use the internet, which also happened back then too, because people get scared. And so use AI.
I think that's a great parallel, actually. I mean, this is the invention of the computer for like this, I don't know, maybe PhD level thought of bringing being a generalist who can bring all the pieces together with multiple data sets and actually come up with logical conclusions.
Yeah. So there it is. Everyone on this pod, listen to this pod, probably not everyone, but most people probably listen to or use AI to some degree because we're not a representation of society.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But if you're not, do put that on a t-shirt.
Okay. I think that's a wrap. Hit us with, hopefully we said something that got you riled today. Hit us with listener mail, skippydiggles@gmail.com. Next week, we're going to talk Pinterest, and I'm pretty excited. The reason we're going to talk Pinterest, at least from my side, Diggles, I know we both agreed to this, but I might actually consider buying Pinterest. It looks so cheap. We'll find out when we read the 10Ks, right?
I like how we've gone from investment committee, send in your ideas and we'll rip them apart, to the first one, we actually might pick it up.
That's how these things work. If we're going to spend our own time on it, we might as well be somewhat interested.
Yeah, exactly.
So that will be fun, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody.